Now, it is important to have a methodology that allows us to handle networking as a strategic process. This is why we will be seeking professional relationships with specific goals and clear objectives, always trying to maximize the possibilities of each of our professional relationships. Fundamentals that will allow you to start working on these lines, enhancing your relationships. The first thing we should do is to list our goals. Which business objectives do we want to achieve? Maybe we can think about ourselves going up to 20%, that all of our products are sold in this or that supermarket, that our products are advertised in this or that medium, etc. So we must always be precise in our goals. For example, we will not be able to say we want to increase sales, but better increase the sale of a certain product by 5% in the next 2 months. This will be measurable, and therefore we can know how successful we have been in achieving that rise. For each objective, it will be necessary to list the tasks necessary to achieve it. Each task must be arranged at a certain time before it overlaps with subsequent actions. By having defined specific actions, we can list the contacts that we need for fruitful exchange, and it is essential not to limit ourselves to the contacts that already we know, but think about uh, we should contact to mobilize the project, regardless of whether or not this person is on our contact list. And then we will develop a strategy to achieve contact with each person that with whom we will develop the precise strategy to get closer. Now we must identify the tastes tastes and interests people with whom they relate usually in our. Yes. It is important to have a methodology that allows us to do so by handling networking as a strategic process. This is why we will be seeking professional relationships with specific goals and clear objectives, always trying to maximize the possibilities of each of our professional relationships. Fundamentals that will allow us to start working on these lines, enhancing our work relationships. The first thing we should know and should do is do a checklist of our goals. Which businesses goals do we want to achieve? Maybe we can think about our sales going up to 20%, that all of our products are sold in this or that supermarket, that our products are advertised in this or that medium, etc. So we must always be precise in our goals. For example, we will not be able to say that we want to increase sales, but we might say that we should better increase the sale of a certain product by 5% in the next 2 months. This will be measurable, and therefore we can know how successful we have been in achieving that rise. For each objective, it will be necessary to list the tasks necessary to achieve it. Each task must be arranged at a certain time before it overlaps with subsequent actions. By having defined specific actions, we can list the contacts that we need for fruitful exchange. It is essential not to limit ourselves to the contacts that we already know, but think about those who we should contact first to mobilize the project, regardless of whether or not the person is our initial contact list. So with this information in mind, we must optimize our strategic networking. Think about what type of event we would invite each person to. Would it be convenient to send an email, to call this person by phone? Well, it mostly depends on the time we are willing to give to this conversation. In order to save time, we need to clear and check our priorities and needs first. We will call first call the people who will actively help and be crucial for us, and we must do our best to convince other negotiators to back us, providing them with arguments that bring their look at us from the first round of activities that we actually would launch eventually. And since networking always points to the long term, we start thinking about how we continue deepening each of our contacts once we have developed our net and are in a position to objectively measure our success. Now, at this point, we are going to work on those contacts that will facilitate us the task, but also on those who would hinder the project. It is so important to do this analysis beforehand. Otherwise, we take risks, as we may overlook certain people who might have helped us in the first place. It could also happen, for example, that we find ourselves in serious trouble to reach a safe harbor with our project because we have minimized the risks that some people put us through during the project. So let's see how we can identify key negotiators and contributors for our cause. Thinking about those who would facilitate the task uh, is not the only criteria to take into account for the integration of new people in our own organization. We must also think about the people who would become a customer or weight provider, a heavy provider, and why not people who could introduce us to a third person who would voluntarily come in our aid. At this point, tools such as LinkedIn are essential to know who can let us get to that first contact we need. Through LinkedIn and other professional social media, we can also identify which type of relationship has the potential to boost our project. Let's think about, for example, someone who is not completely sure that our project is the best solution, and we must then do everything possible to persuade this person so that he or she would figure out our vision. It is necessary that you plan a networking strategy to get closer to each and every potential partner or client. Let's say that we have to introduce a commercial proposal at a key company that can become our number one contributor, so that we have to find a way helps us contact the right person and arrange a meeting. We can bring our project into fruition by analyzing our previous experience in similar matters. This will allow us to see that we require knowledge of common trust between two or more people to be able to satisfy our projections. And this is why, my friends, it is important that we always come back to the concept of giving. We go back to the concept of giving and receiving in order to start thinking about who I should contact first and why. I must already have prioritized my objectives and goals and measured the level of urgency in the realization of each task. In turn, it will be necessary to pay special attention to each principle. How can we link all these elements? How can we get to think about the order in which we should set out contacts, and also think whether the team I formed to advance my goals has a good overall understanding of my projections. How can we do that? It is necessary to identify the key people who will allow us to achieve success. Stay close to those people who you think they will help you advance at a greater speed. So often, the criteria for choice of people who will walk by our side is to think about doors that these individuals may open for you, thus paving the way through the realization of your project. On the other hand, it is important to analyze whether it is worth contacting more than one person at once. Maybe the first person we thought of first is on vacation and does not have time or availability to help us. Sometimes it takes more than one person. We must not exhaust the only guy we have in the first place. By contacting two or more people, we make sure that at least one responds to our call so that we can get closer to our projected results later on. And we can prioritize equally the contacts that we have based on the impact they can have on our brand. High or medium or low impact, doesn't matter. This classification uh, could help you to define the time that must be spent on networking in relation to your common work, but it is not essential for your project in order for your project to function. Shall we arrange further calls or face-to-face meetings? Well, we will personalize face-to-face meetings for high impact contracts with weekly frequency. We will send personalized emails to the contacts of medium impact, and we will exchange online on the other hand, to other people for the low impact. Now, once I know who I have to talk to, it is very important to classify the messages that I will be transmitting. To each of the audiences whom I will be approaching. In general, we work with the same message, which is adapted to each and everyone without changing the essence of its content. The message will also be adapted depending on the predisposition, closeness, or distance from the current relationship with our contributor. Now, we must then adapt the message that will be sent for its target audience. If I, as a health professional, have to get to children, for example, in order for them to clean their teeth accordingly, we will need to develop different strategies too. For example, medical professionals, I will tell them that the child population of Argentina, the United States, France, Spain, Morocco, Algeria, brushes teeth with a frequency of 3 times a day because gum disease resides 98% of the population, and then it is likely that these people develop gingivitis, generating a high cost for the social system and health system or medical institutions. If we address children, first, we will order them to brush their teeth 3 times a day, for example, so that they do not lose their teeth. However, we will send the journalists another message, such as the fact that 98%, for example, of the population has gum disease. This will make them pay attention to the subject. Through the previous example, we can see how the same message needs to pass, albeit with variations according to our receptor, for the population to brush with greater emphasis and frequency at their teeth to avoid diseases. We have managed to generate impact in each of the target audiences that we had previously selected. In which way each audience receives a story has an impact on the effectiveness behind the message, because everyone needs to understand it clearly and correctly. A 4-year-old, for example, will not understand that 98% of the population has gum disease. If we had sent the same message to all the children, they would not have understood it the same way. It would not be professional, on the other hand, to tell a doctor, if you don't brush your teeth, they will fall out, because a doctor can already understand the biological processes and functions of the human body. So we should talk to him about diseases that we often see in children with poor teeth hygiene, for example. During this whole process, we have not modified our message in substance, but only its form, so that everyone can understand it better. Once I know the information I'm going to give, I have to define a communication strategy on how to make the message pass to other audiences effectively and through which means, and how often it is important to make it last in the long term. It will be much easier to forge a long-term work relationship with our contributor over time if we cautiously follow the previous steps. It is easier for everyone to help us boost our project when we have a fluid relationship with that person. For example, many companies give their suppliers one business trip per year, and other companies will invite you, for example, to play at a game of golf or to watch a tennis match together with your supervisor. Sports are always a successful means to solidify work relationships, especially in the business world. This is why so many companies give their customers, suppliers, or partners strategic trips or exchange experiences on a less demanding scale. These spaces let us forge relationships that follow us in the long term. By getting to know each of our contacts deeply, we can make them participate in an event that really interests them and thus predispose them in a good way to help us lead our mission. For this reason, we must define the framework and the format of these meetings. It is also important to carry out a preliminary investigation about our contributor. How could such a person help me boost my project? It is essential to state this information in a written checklist document in order to better organize our networking strategy. We must deepen the relationship with our contributors so that we can approach them with assurance, no matter how much we get together just to talk about some work issue or potential negotiation. It is necessary that our prerogatives are accepted. For example, we could end our meeting by evaluating the scope of a common mission so that we can take advantage of knowledge about our contributors' workload at the time of the reunion. This person may not be a key contract today, but we can join them later over time. Even so, he or she could let other people, for example, potential clients, to be aware of what we are doing by publicizing our program, sorry. We will also be able to listen to other opinions and rescue points. And as entrepreneurs, it is essential to establish the main working lines of our projects, as well as the profile of our key contacts. Then we must configure our network strategy. In addition to this, we will also plan the objectives and goals of each meeting. We will share our plan with our fellow peers so that everyone gets things straight and clear. For example, the client you want to have a coffee with is a wholesaler who could incorporate the product of your company in your portfolio. At the end, we will also do the same checklist. See if we have fulfilled our specific networking goals. For example, we have managed to coordinate a person's visit to our company in order to discuss a business plan. A second loyalty meeting with this person would be necessary before any contract is signed between the two parties. And now let's dig into more common interests that allow us to continue to forge some synergy before doing some serious negotiation with this person. A good idea could also be to ask our interlocutor for feedback. He or she could ask us about our um, interest in the activity for which we have been invited to participate and future actions of which we would like to participate. Once we have this information, we will be able to analyze which of our proposals are viable and will allow us to create and strengthen the type of relationship that we need in order to succeed at our projection. Sorry. For example, for people who like Colombian coffee, we might plan in advance to serve that kind of coffee for our next meeting together. Details like this one, even albeit even if it's a very small detail, could enhance our chances to fulfill an exchange, allowing us to learn more about the tastes of our potential and preferences of our potential client or collaborator. Our aim would be an expectation to comply for each meeting, so that we are going to think about all the details and the type of meeting that will pave us the way throughout a fruitful working relationship. The time, for example, the length, the place, and whether other people will be involved.